Hello!
Hi!
And welcome to the Espace Tricot podcast.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Naomi, and we are broadcasting from our shop in Montreal. And it's morning this time. Usually we film in the afternoon, so that's pretty fun because I can actually have coffee in my mug.
If I have any more coffee, I'm gonna start vibrating. So I didn't bring mine over this morning.
Just slowly sipping.
Very nice. So this is our first podcast since we got back from Rhinebeck, which we're not going to go over too much because if you follow us on Instagram, you saw some of our photographs and stuff. So don't want to like increase the FOMO. We have a couple little things that we discovered that we're going to talk about. But where should we start today?
Well, yeah, I mean, on the topic of Rhinebeck, I feel like the most interesting part moving forward through the autumn is how much inspiration we got from it and the projects that it inspired and the potential new yarns that it inspired. So that's sort of what we'll be focusing on.
But first, I think we have a pattern to discuss, yes?
Yes, we could start there.
Do you want to? Because sure. We're going to release it any second, so like now seems like the moment.
So, I taught last Sunday a class on intarsia. Intarsia is a technique that uses colourwork, but differently from the Fair Isle and stranded colourwork that we all know and love. It uses colourwork instead one colour at a time to create these big graphic colour block motifs, and the advantage of it is that it creates like a single layer fabric, whereas in stranded knitting you're always carrying your yarns together, so it creates a lovely cozy thicker fabric. So I was teaching a class about this, and there are some brilliant intarsia patterns out there. Just browse the category on Ravelry. But you know us, any excuse for a new pattern is any excuse to make our lives a bit more complicated. So I was just playing around with charts and samples, and I realized, hang on, this could accidentally be a fingerless mitten. So that's where the angular sky mittens came from. And hang on, why am I awkwardly demonstrating with this when I have one already sewn up?
I'll hold this.
Oop, that's the top. So here it is sewn up, and it's fully reversible. The idea is when you're wearing them, the colours will be flipped, which is pretty fun. But I wanted to show the full laid flat piece before seaming it up. Yeah,
and just show the inside a little bit. So, you know, the technique involves sort of locking your two yarns together to create a smooth fabric. So you know, like those amazing sort of 80s, especially 80s sweaters where there's like a picture of something, like sort of a very figurative thing. Yeah. That's often done in intarsia, much more complex than this, where you have bobbins and you have colors moving around a lot. So when you get good at this technique and you really understand how to lock your yarns together, you can do pretty much anything.
Yeah, it's sort of even more graphic than stranded colourwork because you just have a bit more freedom to move the yarn all over the place, which doesn't translate to being less complicated. I think that intarsia can get very much more complicated than stranded colourwork, but it's a fascinating technique to learn, and I felt like it completely sort of revitalized the possibilities of knitting for me.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like a new technique can open your eyes to like, oh, well, what if I did this? What I love about this little pattern is that you've done, like, it's a really nice little like curriculum. Like obviously it was for a class, so that's why. But like there's the straight line, so learning how to lock your yarns in the straight line first, and then moving to a diagonal where there's like a little bit more thinking about how things are gonna.
You know, you get used to the technique with two colors, you get used to the twisting and the yarn management before you bring in a third color, and it gets just like that next little level.
Yeah, it's perfect. I love these. So you've got the pattern already.
Yes.
And we're gonna do it as a kit only pattern to start. Where basically you buy the yarn, you get the pattern, and off you go.
And it is knit in Camarose Lamatweed, which we talk about a lot because it's one of our favorites, and these were all mostly leftovers from our respective Baccarat Bank sweater projects. Yeah. So the kits that we'll have plenty of yarn for at least 2 to 3 pairs. So that's sort of that could be your Christmas gift knitting.
Yeah, well, I think they're fabulous. I love them.
You.
There's also, they're a nice little seaming exercise too.
Yes, mattress stitch, very satisfying. We'll include little video links in the pattern for you.
Yeah, perfect.
Should you choose to take it on.
Cool, these are great, Naomi. Thank you for generating our next pattern too. We were kind of due for something.
Yeah, we were. It's been a while since we've released a new pattern. I've sort of mostly been, I have at least been knitting other people's patterns, and one of which I'm wearing right now.
Tell us about it.
So this is the Helix cardigan by Marianne Meunier, and it was developed in collaboration with La Bien Aimée. In her beautiful yarns, it was using La Bien Aimée Helix and Mohair, and I went for the merino singles from La Bien Aimée with Mohair, which ends up being a little bit of a denser fabric, but I think it gives it a nice crisp silhouette, and I knit it to the same gauge. I didn't even bring along a skein of Helix to show.
Oh, I can go grab one, but
Yeah.
one of the things I really like about this, because I know you've been working on this for a bit, is the way you used the colors.
Yes, so I used both the speckled variegated Mohair and the same base in the merino singles. So the color I used is Patagonia, and I have that in the singles to show you. So this is how it looked in the skein, and this is how it ends up looking overall. So, and I never alternated skeins. I don't know how the team does it at La Bien Aimée, but their speckles are incredible no matter what circumference I'm knitting at. I've never noticed it pooling. There's a lot of change in the length of the rows in this cardigan between small circumference sleeve and you know, short rows around the neck and getting much wider and into rib at the bottom, and at no point does it look uneven.
Well, and one of the things that I think that's helping with that is by having the two colors, like the mohair base with this, is that those speckles are lining up in different places, of course. Yeah. And it's helping to like give it this blended thing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's true. I do think that using it alone with a single colored mohair,
would also
like
work.
The Bon Tricot sweatshirt, would give an absolutely beautiful effect. What a speckled mohair gives is like perhaps in those places where the base yarn is a bit calmer and grey, maybe it adds its own layer of speckle because you're at a different point in the skein, if you see what I mean. Yeah. But it is such a reliable, beautiful base yarn in terms of its speckling that you could use any solid mohair. Yeah, absolutely. And you'd still get an absolutely gorgeous effect.
For sure. Well, it looks amazing. I really, really like this silhouette. I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a fantastic pattern. There are 4 possible combinations in it. It has a crew neck, a v-neck, a cropped silhouette, and a long silhouette. So, I mean, it's top down. You can knit it as long as you like, but the useful part of a pattern having those 2 options already is that the yardages are there for you. So
also I would think, does it have buttonhole distribution written into the pattern?
I don't remember off the top of my head if it has you do it by rows or measurement. Buttonholes are tricky things to write. If a designer goes to all that effort of saying every X number of stitches, place a buttonhole, that can be tricky because our pickup rates and row gauges and the way the stitch gauge of a button band relates to the row gauge, the perpendicular row gauge of the body is always different between knitters. So I find often the most reliable thing is to just calculate your button bands yourself. Which is what I did. So off the top of my head, I don't actually remember in the pattern if it does, but even just having the yardages calculated for 2 different versions is really helpful when we're investing in such a beautiful yarn and we want to make sure that we get enough.
Use every inch that you can, right?
Yes. So I guess we kind of had it in mind to talk about another project in relation to this one because we have something that sort of has a lot in common project-wise.
So another finished object, a store sample that we have is a new version of Naomi's beautiful TBD shawl. Oh, we're losing yarn. I'll get that later. Oh,
we don't need backwards. This one.
Yeah, this way. So the original of this used the Shirley Bryan deconstructed sock to create a 2-way fade. And we just wanted to see if we could show something else going on with this beautiful pattern. So this time we used Berroco Aerial, which is a sort of space dyed mohair. So this is the original color here in Degas, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And this is our Happy 4-ply and sweatshirt. So this is what we use together.
And it's a sort of another example of how pairing a variegated mohair with a plain yarn can still give you this really gorgeous, pretty even impact through speckling, but you know, not super intensely. Yeah, this is a really calm, neutral base.
So one of the reasons these two also kind of went together in our heads is not only are they both using this sort of speckled mohair thing, is that both of them were grafted.
Both of them went through some pretty serious surgical procedures. The prognosis is good. The patients emerged unscathed. But
so yeah, in the case of the TBD shawl, we passed this to Amanda to do the sample knitting, and passed her the pattern, which included a section originally about striping two yarns together, because the other version has a plain yarn in the middle and it gets striped in. And just by virtue of not taking enough time really to explain how we wanted to manage that, her original version of this was quite a bit shorter, and we were like, ooh, really kind of want it long.
It could almost be a cowl. We thought about adapting it into, you know, seaming it at the ends and making a sort of an adaptation like that. Like, I'm sure we've all had
those days.
Minor flubs in our projects and thought, how can I make this look like it was intentional?
Yeah.
And in the end, we decided it was just so much more worth it to take a little bit of extra time to get it right.
So yeah, so basically I picked up across a row that I was pretty sure was a fairly plain row, and you know, took a little bit of time, patience, and then cut it, and Amanda filled in the rest and then grafted it back together.
Yeah.
And it's
Tell.
imperceptible.
I don't know where she did it.
And you know, it's no small deal with this lace too, to do that.
Yeah.
But I think also just understand that like the only person who's really probably ever going to notice is you.
Yeah.
And you just take your time and you do it with patience. So that's like a fairly high level grafting, but then you did some grafting too, right?
I did the same. I knit this very cropped, and then I got fed up of ribbing, and I tried it on. I steamed it. I did all the finishing techniques. I even put the button band on, and I realized that it just was too short. I could maybe wear it over very high-waisted dresses, but it was kind of at my rib cage, and I thought, this is just, it's not worth it. I'm never going to knit it. It's worth
never to wear it.
Yes, yeah. Never going to wear it. It's worth taking an extra little bit of time to go back and not just relegate it to a repair pile, but actually stick with it. But I couldn't stand the idea of doing, and this is only about 2 inches of 1x1 rib, but I was
You're like, I'm done
with it. So I took off the button band, saved that yarn again for later, to redo the button band later. And again, I went to right by the border of the ribbing as it was, snipped it, unpicked the whole thing, put the ribbing on a TKB cord, continued knitting, and I can sort of tell from where I wove my ends in how much I did. I knitted about another 2 inches, and then again just grafted the stockinette body stitches onto the held ribbing stitches, and it's no more complicated than grafting the toe of a sock together.
Yeah, most people probably run into grafting but when they finish a cuff down sock. And you know, I used to be really scared of it, and I did it a few years ago for one of my original baccarats. I had knit very, very cropped and realized I never wore it. And I was like, I have the yarn, I should fix this. And I did the same thing. And what really got me over the hump with it was watching an episode of Fruity Knitting, their podcast. Episode 33, Andrea does a full sweater surgery on camera. And as always with anything Andrea does, it's like very, very well explained, very well put. So we're going to link to that episode of the Fruity Knitting podcast, so that in case you are just wondering what this looks like and can't imagine it, I think that's a really good explainer. And it really made me feel like, oh, I can do this. Although I think that's Andrea in general. She's like, you can do this. And then you're like, oh my God, can I?
All it takes is a little patience, but I knew that knitting 2 extra inches in stockinette, and it is, I like that. That's what I needed that needed to happen. But rather than unravel all that rib that I'd done, have all that yarn all kinked up, which affects the look of it at the end anyway, knitting all that extra stockinette and then re-knitting all of that frogged rib, that would all take me far longer than just a really calm, peaceful, repetitive figure of 8 grafting. When we say grafting, you may also know it's commonly known as Kitchener stitch. For many reasons we prefer the term grafting now. It's more evocative of what it actually does, bringing 2 pieces of fabric together.
And I think that's the key. It's like only you know when you're looking at your project what's going to be sort of the deal breaker for you that you can't face doing. And sometimes for me, depending on the pattern, it might be, I'll just reknit it. I'm just going to pull it out and reknit it. And other days it's going to be, I'm going to graft it. But I'm like you, if I put it aside in a mending pile for too long, it just never happens. I have a sweater that's been sitting in a bag with the yarn ready to add length. It's been there for 2 years. I should have just done it when I thought of it. So yeah.
It reminded me of one of the first sweaters I knit, and I approached that sweater all on my own. I wasn't working at the store. I didn't have any friends who knit. I was on Instagram a little bit. I was on the Pearl Soho website and Brooklyn Tweed a lot. And nobody told me that grafting was difficult or annoying or time consuming. What happened was the yardage requirements were off, or maybe my gauge was off, who knows, and I ran out of yarn to knit the sleeves. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just take some yarn from the body. But since it was bottom up, I couldn't unravel and re-knit the rib from the bottom, from the top down. Cut the bottom off, unraveled it, grafted the rib on because I didn't want to knit the rib. I'll probably end up cutting this. It's too waffling.
You think there's a good place to cut?
Yeah, there'll be one back there.
Okay. All right. I was fascinated. I was all in. I was like, what happened next?
Oh, should I leave it in? Shall I finish the story?
No. Okay. I think we're good. But I think
it was another grafting rib on again because I had to pull yarn out to knit the sleeves.
I think the key thing is, like you said, in that part that we're going to cut, if you don't know it's hard, it's not hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll manage to leave that bit in, so maybe I'll just leave this whole story in.
Yeah, maybe. I guess
But it's another usage of grafting. If you run out of yarn,
go back and steal it. You've changed.
But I'm still the same inside.
Thanks for getting the joke. This is beautiful.
This is my new favorite. It's so hard because the little cardigan I was wearing before, I literally finished last night and steamed this morning. So
now it's your new favorite.
It's my new favorite. This is my other new favorite. This is the finished object that we showed you in the last podcast.
Yeah, I'm amazed when I think about the fact that this is all done now. But I guess you were steaming along on this for sure.
This was my Rhinebeck knit. This was 10 plus hours of road trip in a weekend. I basically got the sleeve done on the way down and got the other sleeve done on the way back. It was a nice one to bring along for knitting time with friends.
Yeah, simple stockinette and well, it just looks amazing.
It's so cozy. This is the Dropp sweater by Ailbíona McLochlainn, and it is, as the name suggests, a drop shoulder, but the fun kind where you don't actually ever have to knit flat. It's knit in the round with a contiguous sleeve down here, and continues with like a wedge that increases out down the shoulder, and so then you split for the sleeves here. And last episode I think I was talking about how I hadn't seen that before and it was really cool and innovative, and I wasn't sure whether she had come up with it from scratch, and I still don't know, but when I showed this to Amalia, she was like, oh yeah, I've seen that in lots of other patterns before. So it's clearly a pretty established technique, but I really liked the way, since I'd never quite done it this way before, really liked the way the pattern walked through it, and just very well written. Again, lots of options for customization. It has a hood in it as well, which is great. Might do that next time. And it's another example of a pretty good yarn substitution.
Yeah,
that I was happy with.
Do you want to pass the yarn over?
So the original is knit in Nytiden, which is an unspun, almost like pin roving yarn, which I find very difficult to knit with. It always breaks on me. And there are a bunch of other examples in beautiful rustic yarns. I'd love to try it someday, but I was looking for something to use my favorite color of our Bon Tricot palette in. This is the color Brick in the Happy 4-ply sock blend and the Mohair. And the sock blend has 10%, I think it is, of Swatrolls fiber, which makes it this gorgeous gray base like we showed in the TBD shawl. This is the natural color of it. So it gives a gorgeous richness to all the colors of the palette, and then when you hold them with the Mohair, which obviously is a cream base, takes the color a bit paler, a bit brighter, you get these gorgeous depths of color in the stranding.
This color on you, like, it's not that color I see you wear often, but it lights you up. Like, it's so nice on you.
I used to wear a lot of red when I was a teenager, and somehow it just sort of fell off my radar for colors.
Like, you wear something all the time, eventually you're like, okay, I need a break, but boy, does this, like, you look fabulous in it. So yeah, that's Brick.
Yes.
In these two. And what gauge is this?
This is at 18 stitches stockinette, which I find really light. It still has really good coverage. I don't feel like I need to think too hard about what I'm wearing underneath it. At the same time, we have another finished object sample knit for us by Natalie in Happy 4-ply and Bliss Mohair. Again, these are the two in the color Peacock. And this is the Gingerbread Sweater, which is our own free pattern, and it is at 21 stitches. So it does have a little bit more density, but still totally has like a gorgeous... Oh yeah,
it's still got the drape because of the mohair really helps with that.
So there's sort of just an example of, you know, 3-stitch difference in gauge, but 2 stranding yarns together can just be 2 yarns stranded together rather.
There's a lot of there's a flexibility to it that, you know, you can use it as a substitute for DK or worsted depending on how you want the fabric to come out. And look at these colors together. Oh my god. I love these colors so much. I'm so happy that
I do really like how this turns out. We have the Ribley's Raglan in the mohair as well that's in Peacock, and it's like, oops, we need 2 samples in the same color, but we just love it so much.
Yeah, it's just like a perfect tealy blue. I love it so much. So yeah, I have worn this a couple times when I've been at the store. It's like, much like you in that red, I know this color works, does things for me.
It does. It really does.
So, you know, I could see this coming home with me a little bit maybe this winter if I'm allowed.
That's allowed. I'm going to be doing some dyeing. It is Monday today as we record, and I'm going to be doing some dyeing Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So Peacock proved popular. We made kits for this sweater, but the kits for that sweater could easily do this one too. So maybe when we restock them, we'll include a little note about 3 to 4 skeins of mohair, 3 to 5 skeins of sock yarn. Maybe we say it's a gingerbread sweater, but it could really do other things. So many of our own Espace Tricot in-house patterns or other patterns of fingering and mohair stranded together. This ended up only taking 2 of each.
Yeah, and it's not tiny.
It's not tiny. It's probably about 8 inches of positive ease on me at least. So I think it's about a 41, 42 inch circumference. And
it's short, but it's not crop.
But it's not crop. Yeah. And then the sleeves I did nice and long. I was in the car like, girls, can I stop now? They're like, no, do a little bit more. To keep going a little bit. And it's so worth it to get it's good cozy sleeve.
Okay, show us your spinning.
Well, you hold that.
Okay.
I started. I've been spinning Malabrigo Nube. I think most of us ended up taking some of this home when it came in over the summer. It's 100% merino, and I must admit it's not the easiest drafting process, but it's really worth taking a little bit of extra time, and I was really focusing on my technique a little bit more than I do when something's really easy to draft, when I don't really think about it. So I think that was good for my spinning overall, that I was really paying attention to drying, at least regularity and staple length and all those things that go into how we draft. I still consider myself a very beginner spinner. This is definitely charmingly thick and thin.
But I love that you have 3 skeins of it. I mean, you could really do something with this.
Well, it's effectively 200 some grams because it was 2 different braids of 100 grams each, and then I plied them together. So one of them was this, and the other was called Agua, and we don't have that.
Agua. This is the Marta.
This is the Marte. We have some gorgeous colors left though, but I just thought the colors would ply really well together. I love the barber pole look of contrasting plies, so I did choose specifically 2 braids that were quite different, but had a similar intensity.
Like the blue and orange together too is really nice contrast. It pops just enough, but because they're not,
it's true,
you know, like eye-blaringly bright, they also can blend really beautifully. Do you have any ideas what you might make?
I was just thinking about it. The tricky thing with my spinning is when I make a 2-ply yarn, it usually ends up somewhere around a sport to DK, but it can vary so much that it's sort of like, what can I reliably put it in? Colorwork yolks, obviously. That's
a favorite.
Pretty reliable choice. I think that, I mean, I do have enough to maybe do some sort of little bandana cowl.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So I haven't decided yet. I definitely spin a lot more than I knit with my hand spun. I have a lot of hand spun that I haven't broken into. Sometimes I find it harder to commit to projects when I've spun more yarn. Like if I have 200 grams, it makes me feel like I have to find the right project that will use all of it. Whereas when I spin little bundles, like I love spinning advent calendar fiber, for example. I've done that twice now. And it makes these adorable little cakes that are sort of easier to just make a scrappy project, like crochet squares I've done, or started a Vertices Unite, the shawl by Stephen West, that you can kind of play with how much yarn you have.
Yes, I think that's the thing. It's like you really don't want to get into a project, only use 2 of those skeins or 2 and a bit, and then you're like, well, what do I do with the rest of this? So precious.
That's it. And I have a little yardage counter that I could count the specific yardage, but it's also like, because I've spun it, I don't have anyone to tell me this is how many yards you have in this amount of grams. So I'm like, is one enough for a hat? So the stakes feel kind of high when I spun it myself.
And I think that's why a lot of spinners I know give their hand spun to other people. And maybe it's that sort of, there's enough distance that you can be like, you do something with it. Mona's given me some of her hand spun over the years, and I've used it to make patterns that Mona wrote. And then I feel like I'm giving back a little bit, where I'm like, well, I'm making something that you wrote, and it feels all very connected.
Yeah, so. Totally. I mean, maybe I will end up giving these away. I don't know.
Or, I should share with you the pattern that Mona wrote that uses her. It's called the Caraway. Yeah. And it's a great one for hand spun. And that might be exactly the right weight.
Yeah, because you knit that in your hand spun with Gilead. Caraway
that's
sweater.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's gorgeous.
Yes, I haven't decided yet, but there are places where, you know,
it's quite thin.
It's really quite thin, and places where it's really quite thick. So I'll take my time deciding. There's no rush. And that's me done for whips.
Okay.
Finished objects.
Okay, well, I obviously have one. So this was also my Rhinebeck trip. It was my Rhinebeck sweater, but I also finished it in the car on the way down. I had to seam the sleeves and set them into the arm side. Do my set in sleeves in the car. So I'm like in the car trying things on, being like, one of them got steamed, one of them didn't. Showed up to the event with like one seam a little bit funky. Anyways, I'm super happy with this finished object.
I hope you're proud of it. I am absolutely incredible.
I will do a little thing here. So this is the back. Hopefully everyone can see the back. This is the front, which I think on the previous podcast, the front and back at least were in place. But then this is the sleeve. So this is, I think that the working title anyway is the Aurora cardigan.
I really like that name.
There's other Aurora cardigans out there on Ravelry, so I want to make sure that I'm not too close in publication date to it or anything. You know, I don't want to step on anybody. But that's inspired by the movie Sleeping Beauty, because when I was choosing my colors of Shetland Spindrift, I was looking at some of the stills from that movie to look for colors. So those sort of woodland scenes.
And the fairies' costumes, bringing those bright oranges and yellows in there.
Yeah, there's something so romantic about that sort of Art Nouveau styling that's in there too, right? The way that the trees are drawn and everything. So yeah, I think I've talked before about like going for taking it away from the academic-y sort of cabled vest into something more princessy.
And the buttons do that.
So yeah, I had put on the really tiny buttons. And then I was like, what am I doing? I'm going to go find buttons for this sweater while I'm at Rhinebeck. So I found these at Dusty's Vintage Buttons. She only sells at shows. You can't buy online from her. She's very clear about that. So I always stock up. So I went with like a mixed set of sort of glass-ish. I think they're plastic, but they've got that glass vibe and some gold and sparkly details on it. So these are more the right size.
Yeah.
So basically at this point, I am in the process of grading this babe, because it is not easy. So just to give you guys a sense of what I'm dealing with, this is just one of the charts in the pattern. So that is the colorwork chart for the sleeves and for the little tiny panel in the back here, which you then have to reverse. Like I haven't even finished putting this back at the other end because you have to knit it. So it does repeat, but I'm sort of debating with myself, like what is it that, how can I make this as easy as possible on someone who wants to knit it? Is it nicer to have the whole chart up and down, or to say repeat these rows 6 times? I'll know better when I have all probably 15 pages laid out.
Right.
What's going to be the best thing to do?
Yeah.
You know, on the other side here, you can see me kind of starting to do some of my grading work of like, well, how am I going to size both the sweater and the panels? So for the most part, I think I've got it down to like the panels stay the same size.
Okay.
And the rest of the sweater is what's changing.
Right.
The biggest thing is you know, the length of the sleeve and where it begins to be the cap of the sleeve.
Yeah.
So I am using my my Cocoknits Maker's Board to keep all of this straight. We've talked about these before. I'm very, very glad to have this because there's a lot going on, and I am one of those people who will like shove paper in bags and then they're all crumpled up. And
Yeah,
then like,
you forget what's what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm terrible for that. So I think we have a few of these in stock right now. And of course, we always get them back. But
and they'll be really useful for knitting this when you can't do that because of all the charts you'll have.
Yes.
You can use a little magnetic ruler to move it up so you
Yeah.
can check what row you're doing.
But yeah, it's just good. Like I really feel like I'm flexing my designer muscles a little bit on this, flexing my grading muscles. And of course, just really enjoying wearing it. One thing I almost never do is wear something before I've done the like full photo shoot.
Okay.
But I couldn't resist. I have to, like, I have to wear it every
It's
day right now. So I'm really loving it.
And how many sizes do you think you'll do?
I think I'm writing 6 or 7. The gap in, so one of the things like when you're sizing is you want to think about ease. If something is meant to be worn quite tight, you're supposed to give more sizes because it's going to be harder for people to sort of work within the, you know, if it's 2 to 4 inches ease.
Yeah.
But this is surprisingly more than it looks like because it's ribbed on the sides.
Yeah.
It's stretchy. So I'm more at like 6 to 8 inches between sizes. I'm hoping that that'll be enough. I'm going to run it by our tech editor and see what she thinks about it. But obviously, like each size is taking a lot of work.
It's just so worth it in the end.
Yeah, but also like, you know, a couple people who expressed to me that they want to knit it too, where I'm like, I got to make sure I have that size for them. I want them to knit it. I want to see people have, you know, have that success of wearing it too. So yeah, this was a really fun project, and I really enjoyed it.
So what have you got in progress?
I have a couple things. You know, I'm going to start with the one I think is probably most likely to be a big success.
Okay.
So I was really taken with the Florence Spurling Ziri shawl. You know, I know in the past we had another shawl of hers that we kitted.
The Scout shawl.
Yeah. Which is like a really quite complex little pattern.
Talking of Intasha.
Yeah. But people were up for it.
Totally.
And I've wanted to try out something by her ever since. So this is a new pattern from her called Ziri, Z-I-R-I. And I'm really just at the very beginning here, but so you can see you knit the border first. It's a shawl with these like interesting triangular sections, so almost like bunting in a way.
Awesome.
Like you knit across this, and then there's a pickup, and then there's some mosaic.
Wow.
And then there's some garter.
Cool.
And there's some cute little baubles here. But then there's going to be some duplicate stitch here in another contrast color. So I did this. This is our graphite gray in Happy Foreplay. So this is sweatshirt and pink garnet. These are all our yarns, our Bon Tricot Happy Foreplay. And it's just knitting up beautifully. I think I'm on 3.5 millimeter needles here.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are welts, which is a technique I adore the look of, but I'm not going to lie. It's like a little bit fussy to finish them. So you basically knit 4 rows in the contrast color and then join it back up to the original row that you kind of departed from in the main. So it's just about figuring out like the most efficient way to pick up that stitch from behind, get it on the needle, knit the two together.
The texture is so worth it though.
It's
like
so
that
cool.
3D element compared to stripes. It's
Yeah, it really has pop. And it's interesting and it's different. I think one of the things I'm really loving about this design is just knowing that the whole thing is going to be an adventure, a little bit of test of my skills. You know, I know how to do mosaic knitting, but I haven't done it in a really long time, and I'm kind of looking forward to getting back to it.
Totally.
And that thing that you were talking about, like when you're adding a technique or revisiting a technique, it opens up your mind to possibilities, and I feel like that's something I'm really enjoying about this project.
Yeah, and it's nice to have something that you can really dig into and not feel like it's a race to the finish line.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to be racing to the finish line. You know me, I'm kind of a finished project. Like I'm more about the end result sometimes than the process. But I think I knit one of these on a 2-hour train ride.
Okay.
And so, you know, thinking that each one of these is about an hour and a half, probably. Like, you know, I paused to eat some food and whatever. So there's 7 of them before you start on the next thing. So, you know, I think it will be a little while. Yeah. But in the meantime, at least it's super portable and can come with me. Yeah. But it's the kind of thing I'm like reluctant to start, say, while waiting in line.
Right, because you don't know when you need to put it down or
bring in that other color. Yeah. So, but it's super interesting and keeping my brain going. And the thing is, we are definitely going to kit it.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is, you can't tell because these have all been wound up.
Oh, they're cute though.
They are adorable. So this is what a full skein of Happy Foreplay looks like all wound up. And these are minis. So we've had these ready to go for a little bit. We're just looking for the right projects to pair them up with. Yeah. And so we're going to use them in kits. They won't be available really on their own, we don't think.
The stock is quite limited of what we have to dye them, and they're just so perfect for some specific patterns. So I think, at least to begin with, while we get the hang of supply and demand, we'll be keeping them to kits.
Yeah.
But they're a great little, not even that little, 25 grams. It's not that many. They'll go a long way. So we've got a sock plan in the works with Mona that uses them. Hannah is working on the sweater that I've teased a few times.
So yeah, that's you know, I think I'll be working away on that for the next little bit, and I'm really looking forward to having it finished.
Yeah.
Slightly less of a good plan. So, has this ever happened to you? We were in the car on the way back from Rhinebeck, and I didn't really have a knit because I had worked on this on the way down, and then I finished it, and then I was like, oh God, what am I? So I brought something thinking I'll cast this on, and it's called the Kathmandu Genzer, or Kathmandu Polar, and it's like a really beautiful big gauge color work that I've had my eye on forever. It uses intense bright colors.
You lost a couple stitches.
Oh, I did lose a couple stitches, but the thing is, when you cast on in the car, is that you can convince yourself of almost anything about your gauge. And the reality is, I am not getting gauge, not by a long shot, because I was planning for this to be quite large and oversized. I'll just move this more onto my, so I can show it. But as you can see, it is a bit of a child size of a sweater. I think it's coming out to about 36 inches, maybe 35, which would be 0 ease on me. And that's really not what I had in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm really sort of then throwing this out there to the comments, shout it out. I kind of have two options here. I could keep going and make this be a sweater for my daughter. And she's 7 going on 8. I think she'd love these colors. I'd really enjoy making it for her. Or I could stop now, pull it back, and do a little calculation based on the gauge that I'm getting and knit it for myself. Mm-hmm. Both of those options are appealing. Like, I haven't knit that much, but I really don't think I can push the Gilead to be much bigger than this. I think, you know, this is the Cyrano. Yeah. I think if I'd wanted it at the gauge that it's written for, which is like 14 stitches or 13.5, this is the yarn I should have gone for, but I didn't want to knit in it again. Like, I had just finished this and I was like, oh, I want to do something different.
And it would be, I think, very heavy in such a round, bouncy yarn.
Yes.
Maybe in a Lopi.
Which is, I think, what it originally calls for. But there is a sort of temptation to just knit it as written and see what I get and then give it to my daughter.
It might stretch a little bit when you block it. Not enough to give you, well,
it's color
Gilead
work.
Is pretty stable.
And it's color work, right? Yeah. So there's the strands that are going to keep it.
Yeah.
Well, and this also, this is the first time I've ever done 3 color rows.
Okay.
So I'm learning, that's fascinating too, to try that for the first time. And learning all kinds of stuff, like that they don't, like the little, this section here, those are all the same row, but they're kind of sitting differently from each other for the way that I'm stranding. Mm-hmm. So there's some adventure here to be had in learning a new technique that, again, I think will open my mind up.
Nice.
So yeah, that's on my mind. I think you're right. I might go for Veronica. This is another color that's coming into it later, just to give you a sense of where I'm going with this. Like, I'm going all out. It's big color.
Yeah, and so is the original, too.
Yeah. This was definitely like fully, like there was one of the sample or test knitters did a color work in this, and I just basically looked right at what they did and was like, I want that. Which is not usual for me. I love to mess around with the colors, but somebody just knocked it out of the park, and I was like, that's what I want.
Awesome.
So those are sort of my two at the moment. Of course, trying really hard not to start something else.
Yeah, it's tricky when you have one thing that is very time consuming and focused. You feel like you want something, another project that's simple to just keep you occupied when you don't want to think. But you can't just keep casting on projects every time you hit a bit of a wall with something.
Can't you?
I tell myself that I can't.
You can't. I guess part of why I'm also was like debating about what to do about that Kathmandu Genzer is like, because of the store, right? So if I make such huge changes to something like knitting it in a child's size, it's like, how useful is that as sort of something that we can show in stores, something that we can inspire people with, when it's so outside of the realm of what the pattern was designed for.
Yeah.
So I wrestle with that. And of course, sometimes we knit just for pleasure, for our family, for ourselves. But, that was not my intention when I picked that up. It was supposed to be something that would function as a store sample sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, when your stitch gauge is so much tighter than the original, your row gauge is also going to be affected, which will change the depth of the yoke, which might need some modification.
Yeah.
Also. So it's not like you can just knit it completely as written for Kika necessarily.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be quite complicated modification. So yeah, it's like the wheels are turning in the back of my head. Like, how do I want to deal with this, and what are my intentions for this project? I think you have
I've got some things,
a couple more whips to show.
So the main one that I'm trying to devote most of my energy to at the moment, because it's a store sample and I can't wait for it to be on the floor showing itself off. So this was a true Rhinebeck inspiration. We'd noticed the Wavy Gravy sweater by Wanderlust knitter, Caitlin Tarowski. When it came out in May, I went back and checked.
Okay.
So it's been out for a while. And I don't know, if you remember that far back on Instagram, we instantly liked it, put together a few color suggestions in Lazy DK, which I think could be a good choice too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what we chose to actually knit it in was totally inspired when we saw Caitlin at Rhinebeck in this sweater. And
in person,
I think I saw her around the field a little bit, around the fairgrounds, but didn't go up to her or anything. And then we're on a terrace outside this really nice restaurant that we went to, and I see her walking by and I'm like, that's the Wavy Gravy, and you're like, that's her. Right? So we inelegantly yelled from the porch.
Hey, Caitlin!
Which I think is part of the course in Rhinebeck. It happens that way. And it was really sweet to meet her. Lovely, bubbly, friendly smile. And
yeah, and seeing this sweater in person, seeing the colors, like it really, we were like, we have to have that
now
in
it's
store.
Happening. Yes. And we chose the, I think, perfect yarn for it, which is our own Bon Tricot Bonnie DK. It's got this great chevron pattern that's really simple to memorize. It is one of those things that is very tricky to put markers in for, but it's really just...
You can read your knitting, right?
Yeah,
once you
exactly.
get going. I'm noticing what a smart decision this is by Caitlin, the designer.
To not bring in more chevrons?
Yeah, to take the chevrons out of the under section of the sleeve, which is going to allow for much easier grading, actually much easier managing your increases as you work your way up. It is up, right? Yes,
it is up. Yes, it's a bottom-up sweater. And it comes with charts, increased charts for the sleeves and decreased charts for the yoke. So you can check it off as you go. And yeah, she really did herself a favor, and all of you knitters a favor by not trying to work in where this chevron would be added. I think it also keeps a good line in the sleeve because you're not adding bulk from the yarn overs when it's already voluminous enough.
So you have some more of this done, right?
So
like this
I'm showing off the
swatch.
sleeve because it's definitely more high impact, but I've made a good start on the body as well. So here I am. TKB cords came in very handy for this. I've got the sleeve resting on one until I'm ready for the next sleeve, or ready to join it in the round rather. And then I've got the other TKB cord is effectively
like a stitch stopper,
Yeah, at the same time, I can push my stitches onto it.
And get a better sense.
Get a better sense of the size. So I'm knitting the 50-inch circumference, which I think I'm cutting it fine on the yardage. There's one color I might be 3 yards short, but at the same time, there's always leeway.
Also, you could just dye yourself some more yarn.
I know, but I want to be able to kit it and be able to tell people reliably what size they can knit up to. So,
oh, you're missing stitches there, I think.
Oh no, you're off. Yeah, the cord fell off. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, one of the things that Naomi was mentioning to me is that she's using her Addy tips for this, her Addy turbos, which are very, very
4.5 millimeter, and they're very blunt. So
very, very blunt.
The limit of what a TKB cord can swish onto.
Because I know every time we talk about the TKB cords, someone says they don't work for me, they fall off, and I was like, that has not happened to me. But I also tend to use very pointy needles.
Yeah.
Or wooden needles.
And small sizes.
Yeah, and they grip really well to that, but it's true that there is like an outer limit of what they're going to do, and this looks like it
They would be fine on a Xiaogu 4.5 or a higher 4.5. Addy Turbo is notoriously blunt, which is kind of like the fun thing about it. It
makes the knitting fly by.
It corners the market on blunt needles.
Yeah.
But, anyway, it's a great needle choice. It's going really well.
Cool. It's looking fabulous. I can't wait. I do feel like there's this book I read when I was like 12 or 13. You know, I was into like supernatural stuff. And there was this book about this girl moved to town, and all of a sudden this other girl who's friends with her starts like sewing dresses that don't fit her and in colors she doesn't like.
You were telling me this story.
And I'm like, I feel like I've cast a spell on you, and now you're just knitting things for me.
Basically, I mean, I would not have chosen these colors together, but they are fabulous. And the thing is, they really show off the palette very well, and they're inspired by the original. So even if it's not my personal taste, I'm just loving knitting it.
Yeah.
And the pressure is off for it to be something that I know I will wear.
Yeah.
I can knit this yarn just for fun. I mean, even this yarn is not necessarily my first choice for stuff for myself, but I get to knit store samples, and I get to knit with the yarn that I love knitting, which is sort of the funny thing about this Bon EDK.
Where it's like, I'm all over it and want to wear it all the time because I love the smushiness and I love the softness. Yeah. But yeah, I was like joking that I've like bewitched Naomi into knitting all kinds of things that I want.
Yeah, this is sort of a fun excuse for me to knit something that for me is wild and wacky in not beige, not rustic,
not grey,
not grey, not stranded with mohair. And it will be a gorgeous showstopper of a store sample.
Yeah, well, and maybe I'm going to wear it somewhere.
Yeah, you should.
I would love that. I think basically we're going to wrap up with some coming soon and newly restocked and stuff like that. So since we're talking Rhinebeck inspiration, I do just want to flash this yarn that we discovered.
Oh yes, because that's my second win.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Which is kind of a selfish project for me, because I do have one of those on my needles too.
So we were pretty good about not buying a lot of yarn at Rhinebeck because, you know, we have yarn. But one place that we basically all had the same reaction was Moondrake at the Woolen Folk event. So Moondrake Yarns has this incredible base called Fua Fua, and it's a brushed cashmere and merino blend. I've already caked mine up in anticipation of finishing my other whips so that I can do something with this.
The camera does not do it justice.
No, it's like, oh, it's so soft.
It almost looks like a Ziri silk blend. It's got that matte fuzziness, but it just has a little more oomph to it.
It's the thing that cashmere has that I don't know how else to explain it. It's like, you know, if you've touched it, you know what cashmere does. So Naomi's got a little design in progress happening here. I am thinking I'm thinking about gloves.
That could be amazing.
Really soft cashmere gloves.
Yeah.
Mona has some too. And the good news is we have already placed our order. So this yarn will be coming into the store. It's unquestionably a luxury. It's something really special where maybe you treat yourself to 1 or 2 skeins. So we'll have lots of ideas about how you can use it, either in combination with other yarns or in small projects on its own. Yeah. But we are so excited.
They're 50-gram skeins, but it still packs that almost lace weight yardage. I think it's 350 odd yards in a skein.
Here, I have my label here, I can tell us. Sure.
It definitely will take you a long way.
315 yards.
15, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that can still go a long way in a project.
Yeah. So we're really excited to get this in. Our hope is we're going to have it before the holidays, because that's, I mean, talk about a lovely gift.
Oh yeah.
If you know a knitter,
really.
This would be.
And there's, it's the sort of thing you can reliably just grab one skein of your favorite color and you know it will become something fabulous. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. It is hand dyed. It has these nuances in it, but they really are these sort of strong, solid colors.
Yeah.
And the palette's just gorgeous. I can't wait to show you all.
So that's coming. But then we also have, you know, it's fall, and fall is the season, and winter for your local yarn store is very happy because they're just rolling in yarn.
It comes in every day. We've already had one interruption to this podcast from our fabulous postal service worker who brought in 2 boxes of, I think, Rerum.
Rerum Natura, so like the Cyrano and the Gilead and the Ulysses that we talk about all the time.
I think that should be on the shelves very soon, or already. Oh, there he is.
But I have a nice little basket that I put together for us.
I'll give you this basket, and I'm on pom-pom duty. Who's first?
You go first.
Okay. We've talked about these before. I'm not. We have talked about them on the podcast.
Yeah, we just got more in.
We just got more in. Toft do a bunch of stuff. They do designs, they do yarn kits, and they do these incredible pom-poms. And they're 100% alpaca, but they're cruelty-free. So they're from the hides of alpacas that die naturally, which is a real loss to farmers when their animals die. It means they've lost a renewable resource, i.e. the shorn fleece every year. So this is another way to just help recoup some of the costs of that loss by turning these into absolutely gorgeous pom-poms. And we have quite a few natural shades as well as really fun bright shades. And the way they work is they have snap fastening. So the snap sews onto the hat and you can remove it really easily so that you can wash the hat, but you can also mix and match between.
Yeah, so you know, if you were like, oh, I don't love this,
I'm not feeling lemon yellow today, I'll go neutral, you can just pop on a different one and you've got a totally different look. So that's a really fun way to shake up your pom-pom looks.
And this hat is actually a new store sample crocheted for us by Celeste, and it's called the Brandy Toque. I have the designer's name, Danielle Arseniak. And this was actually for a class as well, like how to crochet do a crochet toque, and worked up super fast in Homestead, Plymouth Homestead, which is one of our go-to
really
worsted weight yarns.
Woolly,
yeah,
bright palette, great price.
It's a really nice way to like make the pom-pom stand out. Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's got, oh, that's the tag. It's got like a nice heft to it from the denser crochet fabric.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, we've got
pom-poms, there's restocked. What else?
So then, you know, we have a lot of our favorite fall yarns. We've just got, I picked like a nice sort of icy palette. So I'll pass you these. This is Double Sunday, Sadness Garn, which is one of our favorites. That Double Sunday is it's not super wash, but it is a washable merino. This is excellent for kids. It's excellent for your gift knitting for people who maybe don't want that hand wash thing coming into a lot of people do blankets with this as well.
It's a 50-gram ball, so it's also great for any kind of colorwork project because it's not treated as the standard superwash treatment. It still has a bit of a robust, woolly, soft feel that will sit well in colorwork or striping, and you don't have to go the whole hog on 100-gram skeins. You've got really nice, manageable quantities.
And then the sort of sister yarn to that is the alpaca, also from Sadness Garn, also washable. Machine washable and cold, and a similarly beautiful sort of mostly muted palette. The Double Sunday has some brights, but really the alpaca is mostly sort of a more muted, beautiful blues and grays.
Alpaca doesn't take dye as intensely anyway. And it's got a gorgeous halo as well from...
And it's a really nice, I've talked about it before that I'm like a little sensitive about a lot of alpaca, and this one I really love.
We have a store sample on the way of the pressed flowers shawl.
Yeah.
That with this and Feederbrook, so hopefully we'll have some shots of that soon.
The nice thing is we're freshly restocked on this, so we have lots of good sweater quantities and lots of different colors, and you know, these are a good price too. So you know, if that's part of your planning for your gift knitting, I think these are really good ones to look at. We are also restocked on our Knitting for Olive mohair and merino.
This flies out and we love it.
Yeah, basically we don't talk about it that often because we don't have to. It's just like it arrives, it goes out, it arrives, it goes out. This is the unicorn purple color.
Super fun. We added this quite recently.
Yeah.
Or over the summer, I think.
Yeah, I think it was in the summer.
I love it.
But basically what's really cool here is that if you do like that stranded mohair look and you want to take the sort of complication of color pairings out, they are the same colors, they have the same names, you can find them and put them together and you know that they're going to work.
Yeah. Although it is also really fun to mix and match. So if you ever have any questions or want to see photos side by side.
Yeah, we can do that too. And then the other yarn that like basically, again, we don't talk about it much because we don't have to, is our two Dropps go-to. Yeah, here, take the basket for a second.
Dropps.
And this is our amazing warm-up sweater. Naomi's hit design from this time last year, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's been about a year.
Yeah.
So cozy. 5 to 6 or 7 balls, depending on the sizes.
Yeah.
This is size 2, used 5. And before giving it its starring turn on the podcast, I gave it a quick glean. Gleaner is really having a moment right now. I think they're really on the up and up, but we never forget a classic. This is a depilling tool. If you haven't tried it, your knits your knitting life is about to change, or rather your knitting upkeep.
Yes, your laundry is about to change.
It's a sort of, it's not a blade, but it's like a,
it's like a pumicey sort of thing, like a pumice
It's a
stone.
volcanic rock. I guess I was trying to think of a word to refer to what looks like a blade tool.
Yeah, they call them replacement blades, right?
That's true.
So,
Okay,
but it isn't. But it is not.
Word,
but it doesn't cut.
I'm babbling, but it doesn't cut. Your yarn will never be cut. It basically just shaves off the surface layer without any risk to the fiber itself. You would usually do it either on a hard surface
yeah.
or on you. You know, you can even just go down your own arm, give yourself a little.
You know where it's really good is for, you know how, do you guys get this? Where it's like anywhere that you're rubbing, that's where the pills show up.
Yeah.
So a little glean of the underarm.
That's it. We often
we do that for each other in the store. So it's like, oh, just lift your arm. I'm just gonna. So we have a fresh restock of those.
And the brush on the other side is fantastic for removing all the fluff that's come off with the blade, but also it's incredible for pet hair.
Yeah.
It's better than a sticky roller.
Oh yeah, way better.
In a lot of situations I found. So just a really handy all-round tool.
Yeah, so this is the Dropp's Air, which is sort of a worsted weight, I guess, and it's in that realm, worsted to Aran weight. And then we also have the Dropp's Wish, which is heavier. It's more of a chunky, also a classic that we basically can't keep on our shelves all winter long.
Super light, super soft for quick knits. Basically, everybody who receives this as a gift is going to find it next to Skin Soft. That's our experience in the years we've been carrying it. So really reliable.
Yeah, so it's just nice to have. There's just this feeling of abundance when we have fresh orders of all of these favorites in, and we feel super confident telling people you can find the color you want. We have enough for you to get going on your winter sweater projects. So like Naomi says, if you have any questions about colors or pattern ideas, you can get in touch with us. But really, in a way, these are very plug and play. You know, you just add needles. Tons of pattern inspiration on Ravelry for them too. And then our final exciting restock is Jezebel. Yes.
The increasingly popular and continually popular Chiaogu Twist Shorties. So these are specially designed kits of, now this is the blue set, so it is the larger sizes, 3.5 to 5 millimeter.
Here, I'll open it so people can see what we're talking about.
They are specifically designed for really short circumferences, so anything from hats down. They're great for sleeves, they're great for socks, although you need something else for the heels and toes. And they come in these cute little packets.
I mean, they're knitting needles for fairies. So they're really, really tiny.
And elves.
Thumbelina.
And there's a red kit as well that goes from 2 millimeter to 3.25. And what's coming soon as well, we have them on order but they haven't been released yet, is a yellow set that goes even bigger than this. Is 5.5 I think.
Yeah.
Or 5 rather. And then there's another set that's going to go even larger.
Yeah, this goes to 5.
So they each come in their own little envelopes, but what we find even better for holding them all together, because most people end up getting both the red and the blue, is this case from Jezebel, Jezebel B. So it is her classic signature denim and linen case that she's been doing for years in different iterations, really beautiful fabrics. Handmade in Otterburn Park, which is not far from Montreal, and this is specifically designed for the shorties. So the needle case pockets are smaller, so that you can reach in more easily when you have the small.
And your cables kind of go in here, and this leather helps keep them.
Notions pouch
with like really serious Velcro. You do not lose things out of this.
Nothing's going to get lost. So then it all folds up.
It sort of rolls up. Yeah, that's it. And also Velcros.
It's all nice and fresh and crisp, so it hasn't learned its shape.
Yeah, they break in well, and so then you have this adorable little pouch that has everything you need in it. And we also have them in the khaki
as well. So I love that, and really it is very multi-purpose. If you have 4-inch tips as well, which another popular kit size, they will still fit in this upper pockets. These ones are very specifically designed for the smaller shorty tips, but if you have a mix of maybe shorties and 4-inch, they'll all fit in nicely.
And since we were, placing an order with Jezebel, we decided that we would go ahead and bring back just a couple of her amazing leather knitting bags, or any kind of bag. I mean, you could use this as your purse as well, or any kind of tote, but this is the La Rouge.
Absolutely gorgeous leather.
The quality of this leather is just incredible.
And it fits a huge amount. Like, that is definitely at least a comfortable sweater project, if I would say any size. And the fun part on the top is this is joined with snaps. So it sits open too, like a bucket. If you just, see how gorgeous that leather is, beautifully soft. So it'll sit open like a bucket as well to knit from freely if you just wanted it beside your couch or something like that.
And it really is like a great shape. I find there's nothing else really quite like it. It holds its shape well on your arm when it's not full.
Yeah.
And has lots of room as well and sits flat. So these are definitely a bit of a treat. But every time we bring them in, they're usually gone very quickly after that. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Just gorgeous. Smells amazing.
Yeah, the smell of it. Well, it's like that's what my studio at home smells like right now, because I've got some leather work to do myself, and it is like, it's sort of like the sheep smell. It's that farm smell. If you like it, you like it. Yeah. And I really do adore it.
And these are just always so consistently beautifully made. We just love Jezebel's work.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that kind of wraps us up. But I feel like this was action packed today.
Yeah.
It's
I guess that's what happens when we take a longer break between, because it's been about a month.
No, I think it's 3 weeks.
No, because we were going to.
Oh, we're a few days behind because of because I decided to go to Ottawa.
Fun.
And have a bit of a personal day. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Amazing.
Fun.
I had a personal day then too. I did some selfish sewing. Yeah. I don't like the selfish thing. For me, sewing.
That's you're allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I think calling that selfish is. It's like a self-judgment that isn't necessary.
Totally. I know the language of selfish knitting is caught on, but it's like the language of like addict language in knitting. I don't love it. Yeah. You know, you're doing it for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or you're doing it for other people, and that's wonderful too.
More the way I thought about it when I took the day off was like, gosh, I have a nice boss. My boss gave me Monday off to go spend time with a long lost friend who I hadn't seen in years, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go do it. And you know, that's one of the nice things about being your own boss is you can be, you know, sometimes we drive ourselves really hard, which I think, you know, a lot of you out there probably also have either small business or side businesses where you're doing yarn stuff. You know this, like you drive yourself so hard, but sometimes you got to be the cool boss and be like, you know what? You should take the day off, which is basically what I did.
That's what I did too. I was like, okay, great, another day for dyeing. And I was like, you know what? No. Yeah. I'm going to make a coat out of this antique quilt.
All right, well, we will see you guys again soon, probably 2 to 3 weeks. 3 weeks is our aim. Yeah. We're trying to do it every 3 weeks. So.
Gotta give us some time to finish some projects.
Yes, I have some.
That's why we had so many finished objects this time, was because we left it a little extra.
Yeah. So we'll see you then, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.